Afternoon, gang. Yep, I'm here again, which means there's something going on. So, all right. I don't know if most of you have probably already seen some of this. I know it was written up on the Daily Mail. It would Angry Prepper put the tweet up that U.S. Strategic Command put out. I want to read you this quote. This is straight from Stratcom. The spectrum of conflict today is neither linear nor predictable. We have to consider the possibility of leading to situations that could quickly force the adversary, Russia, to consider nuclear use as the least bad choice. Now, there's that, which when you get Stratcom saying that, that's not a good thing. But then you also have Tulsi Gabbard, if y'all remember her, former congresswoman from Hawaii, ran for president in 2020 as a Democrat. Obviously didn't go anywhere, but she was about the most moderate Democrat of the whole mix, okay? Her quote, "Are we prepared to see our loved ones burned alive by a nuclear holocaust with Russia? If not, stop the bunch of cockfights and de-escalate before it's too late." Now, what she says is very correct and very true. And what Stratcom is saying is, I'd say, somewhat accurate. Okay, I'm going to give you this as an idea. Like I said the other day, Putin may be wanting to put the Soviet Union back together. We're going to find out more about Belarus. That's one thing. All right, so now we're talking about a country that is in between Western Europe and Russia. Okay, so a buffer. Okay, so now again, you're talking west of Russia, but on that line. Ukraine is due south of Belarus. And so, it's almost expanding all of Russian territory westward. Now, I want you to go back in history a little bit and look at World War II. And when the Germans went into Russia, one of the things they certainly were not prepared for was the winter. And that was a big help for the Russians. The Nazis thought they could go in, march to Moscow in the warmer weather, weren't prepared for winter, and the winter was very devastating. However, here's the other thing. The other thing that was very devastating to Germany, and which would be the exact same here, is wave after wave after wave after wave of Russian soldiers coming in. It's a whole lot easier for Russian soldiers to move to the next country over, Ukraine, okay, than it is for the British, the Americans, the French, the Italians, the Germans, whatever, to move all that equipment. While Russia is staging all this equipment on the Ukraine border, NATO is kind of out in the distance, okay? And Ukraine is kind of on their own. So this is what Tulsi Gabbard is saying. If NATO gets involved here, then they've got to move everything in, and Russia can just keep pumping and pumping and pumping people in. And eventually, what would happen, you'd see it kind of move two ways. Russia would eventually take Ukraine. NATO would eventually push Russia back. Okay, that would be inevitably what would all happen. And if NATO kept going, okay, further and further, let's say they get into the Donbass, Luhansk area, that's what Stratcom is saying, where the least best option that you'd wind up have happen, is if we continued all the way to the end, that Russia would wind up using its nuclear arsenal. That's pretty much where it stands here, and this is what Stratcom is saying. Now, if you think about it, if that happens, if Russia, huge if, okay, please understand this. I'm not saying anything about the point of, yes, this is going to happen. This is a monstrosity if. If that happened, obviously, you're going to have retaliation around the rest of the world, okay? Whether it be the EU, where, nukes can be in the EU in a couple of minutes from Russia, no big deal. Canada, United States, 20 minutes. Australia, half an hour. You wipe out the whole Western world, okay, or, and then with Russia and everything getting wiped out in itself, what does that leave? Now, literally, that would leave Africa and potentially South America living in the aftermath of nuclear holocaust. Okay, so this is how stressful this is right now, guys, for a lot of people. I mean, depending on where you are, and I know we've got people that listen to the channel here from all over the world, but like I said, you're in Europe, you're 5 minutes out, you're in Australia, you're half an hour out, and those of us in North America are 20 minutes out. So you do what you can, but as many people have said in the comments, we can't control this, which is all we can do is prepare for it, okay, and however it happens. Now, you guys have inevitably seen target maps. We talked about this a week or so ago. If you were on the East Coast, or the West Coast, I mean, those are targets. You're around a military base or a nuclear facility, those are targets. But again, you're talking about lobbing hundreds and hundreds of missiles, which is possible. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they've got to reload a silo or something. But how that's all going to work. So now you get the military as the generals from Stratcom who are actually going to be testifying to Congress tomorrow and Thursday, which is kind of interesting because they're going to be talking to Congress at the same time Putin's talking to Congress, or his parliament. Okay. So you're going to have a big news day, if you will, with all of that going on. But as one of the generals put it, he goes, it's very hard to prepare for a war that's never happened before. And that's kind of where we all are, all right? People have a pretty good idea how to prepare for a hurricane, or how to prepare for a wildfire, or how to prepare for a tornado, or for all that intents and purposes, how to prepare for economic collapse. There's some history that we can look at and say, okay, this is what you need to do. This, if they would have done this last time, this would, the situation would have been better. There isn't a way to prepare for a nuclear scenario. And I mean, as much as everybody can say, oh yeah, well, look at Nagasaki or look at Hiroshima, that didn't go too well. All right. Remember, within a day or two of the two of them going off, Japan surrendered and said that was it. Okay. So guys, just keep paying attention to what's going on. And again, we talked about potassium iodide the other day, talked about plastic sheeting, talked about how I mentioned Lisa Prep's video. I'll say it again about how to protect yourself. Many, many, many things. Again, we're preppers. A lot of the stuff that we buy and have on hand, we hope we never have to use. A lot of people have Berkeys to, purify rainwater or lake water or whatever it is. You hope you never have to use it. You hope for the rest of your life you can go turn the tap on and water comes out, okay? This is just something else we are prepping for, okay? It's closer, as a few of the other vets from my era are saying, boy, this really sounds a lot like the Cold War and what it was like when we were in the 80s. It does. But, the fact that this is getting out there, and finally it seems like the media, I mean, even though they're a couple of weeks behind on everything, is finally going, oh, you know what, there's something going on over there. So maybe a little bit more people will get aware of what it is. So if you're going into the office or, bridge club or, sitting at the coffee shop or whatever, and somebody mentions something about it, strike up a conversation and get them involved. I mean, this is an opportunity for us as preppers to get more people to prepare. That's a good thing, okay? Because we're going to need each other, no matter what. I mean, again, sometimes, well, politics aside, red or blue, okay, whatever, you know, we're going to need each other. Just kind of remember that part. All right. Should anything else come up today, like the verdict, I'll see you then. Have a good one. Pinball out.